So, well, I imagine this will have to be the last time we talk about Anthony Jeselnik for a while, I would think, right?
I mean, he's kind of nuked every possible show he could go on.
He's not going to keep coming up. Well, Rogan should have him on, but he said he won't do it for some reason. But the Legion of Skanks guys, who usually respond to stuff like this, right in their wheelhouse, they finally decided to get in the mix with this Anthony Jeselnik stuff. Because for those of you that don't know, Jezelnik has trashed them before. He retweeted a Seth Simons article that called them white supremacists. And then when Big J Okerson asked him about it, because I guess Jay and Anthony were friends from back in the day, and Jay asked him about it, and I guess Anthony felt kind of bad. Anthony went on another podcast and was like, yeah, I didn't even read the article. I just retweeted it. But he's like, those guys do deserve whatever they get because they've had Alex Jones on, which they haven't. But also, like, who cares if they did? So they've had a weird relationship, and this came up on the Legion of Skanks yesterday, and I thought, this is how you handle something you don't care for when you're on a comedy podcast, Anthony. Anthony has tried to lay down the rules of how comedy should be done when it comes to podcasting, and you're not a real comic if you do a podcast or if you ever talk seriously, and he's doing all that while talking seriously on a bunch of different podcasts. I think the Legion of Skanks guys laid out the blueprint for how you handle something like this.
I didn't know the story.
Well, I don't really know. Jezelnik has been going after everybody.
Is he?
Anthony Jeselnik, he does not like other edgy comedians.
Is he going after edgy comedians, or does it just sound like he's going after them until he delivers his punchline, which is actually the opposite of what you thought it was
maybe
gonna
nobody
do.
listened to the second half of this interview where he switches it and he actually likes it.
Because for a while
you guys
there,
have beef with Anthony?
No. Anthony has beef with. Anthony does not like any other edgy comedians. He
Sam.
wants to be the only edgy comedian out there.
Sam, I don't have beef with. No, I have beef with where I thought he was going until that last line came around, and I was like, I thought you loved your grandma, but now it turns out you murdered her.
So, I mean, they're just completely making fun of Anthony's style, but then, like, you could tell Murrill is a little uncomfortable because he's friends with Anthony. So he's like, what, do you guys have a problem with him? And Lewis eventually goes, no, we've admired Anthony our entire careers, and he hates us for some reason.
And not even a little bit. He hates them a lot.
Yes, he hates all, and now you can tell he really hates, particularly Hinchcliffe, I would say even more than Rogan.
Yeah.
But you know what? The Hinchcliffe comments were the one I understand. He's like, this guy has such an ego on him, and I get it. But then Anthony tells you how to do comedy. And Big J actually had a good comparison where he's like, I disagree with this harshly, and I'll tell you why. It's not even necessarily what he's saying. It's the same philosophy I had when Hannah Gatsby said you're not a comic if you're not talking about your trauma. There are people that think like, well, I figured out how to do comedy correctly, and everyone should be following my lead. It's like, no, I mean, you could say Carrot Top is a shitty comedian. He's still a comedian. You know what I mean? Like, add whatever adjectives you want to describe it. He's still a comic.
Is there a great episode of Why Are You Laughing About Carrot Top? There sure is.
We defend this great man who's been spat upon his entire career. So make sure you go watch that. But the Legion of Skanks guys continue.
By far.
They're playing Anthony's special, which I hope we don't get in trouble for.
We probably will, especially this early. But
again, by the way, his special was good.
Of course it was.
Like, I mean, there are some jokes where it's like, because of his style, like the way Dave pointed out, you're like, okay. They fell a little flat. I don't think it's as good as some of his others, but it's very good. I was laughing the whole time throughout. He has a great Norm story at the end. Even the Rogan stuff was like kind of funny. So like, if he did that, that Rogan joke on its own would be way more impactful than him going on Marin and just whining about the state of comedy for 40 minutes.
No, that's the cool thing to do. You didn't know
Sorry,
that?
this is from Bones and All on Netflix. YouTube, you allowed the Legion of Skanks guys to play it. Don't take us down, please.
What do you think about cancel culture? Does it make you mad? Aren't you scared? What do you think about cancel culture? So let me be clear. I don't give a fuck about cancel culture. What I am sick of are comedians complaining about cancel culture. It's not that hard. Do your job.
Hey, don't laugh at him.
Comedians.
So far, what? We're trying to prove a point right now.
No.
Don't you dare. Hold on.
So far, I'm just enjoying it.
I know. God damn it.
Let me say this too. I watched the
Such a good
special.
comment.
It's very, very good.
No, he's a good
I
comic.
bet.
I'm going to text Anthony after this. I watched your special on Legion of Skanks. It's great.
Hey, Alex G. Mike, stop showing funny points of the special.
The guys were talking shit, but the crowd seemed to love it.
Yeah.
He's such a good comic. He's such a good comic.
Guys, you're really ruining our point right now.
We're going to play his comedy. I'm going to end up laughing, I bet.
No, so I skipped ahead a little. There's only a couple more jokes. They were good, but that's
They're all pretty good, dude.
Well, let me hear him, dude.
this is where he
Go
brings
back
up
to
joke-
where we were.
Isn't it funny how Anthony puts on this serious talk, and we played from Marin, we played from his podcast, but there's ones we missed. The article they're quoting from, I think he's being quoted on Tom Papa's podcast, or maybe he did an interview or something. Like, there's at least 4 or 5 instances where Anthony's going all over town, trashing these guys in a serious way, and being like, if you have serious conversations, you're not a comic. And he's doing it over and over again. Now, some of the guys he's calling not comedians are doing a hilarious bit with Anthony's serious conversation. Don't you see, Anthony, the hypocrisy of what you were doing?
Maybe he watched the same basketball tournament we did, and we're like, "Oh, Big J."
Yeah, right. He's only seen that, and he's like, "Oh, I guess Big J's not a comic. I don't know." But no, these guys handled it beautifully. I think there's another clip of them goofing on him, right?
Yeah.
I like Joe. Joe's my friend. Joe's a good guy. But if you listen to his podcast, you're a fucking loser. My brother-in-law is Joe Rogan's biggest fan. Never misses an episode. Doesn't think 4 hours is long enough.
Hey!
But my brother-in-law is Joe Rogan's...
He's killing with the graphic.
I know.
My brother-in-law is a conspiracy theorist. A crazy conspiracy theorist. Like, my brother-in-law refuses to become an organ donor because he swears that if you get into an accident and the paramedics see that you're an organ donor, they won't try to save your life because they want to use your organs to help someone else. It's insane. But I can't argue with him. He's a paramedic.
Yeah, great. Yeah, he's...
Edit this all. Edit every piece of this podcast right now. This is ridiculous. We're trying to trash Anthony Jeselnik for attacking Joe and Tony. You're not understanding the point.
You can't do it with the actual comedy.
Yeah,
God damn it. You should have thought this
Where's
out.
his podcast fodder?
There was a middle part in there where we would have gotten at him, but you guys cut all the punchlines together. That worked out. pretty
Yeah,
good.
really?
Maybe
That worked
if
out
you
pretty
guys,
good
maybe
for
if you
him.
guys weren't laughing so hard, we could have heard the unfunny parts.
I think
There's probably some in there that sucks, right?
I think I agree with the audience.
It was so tight, the economy of words was mesmerizing.
We can't wait for you to have Anthony Jeselnik on the podcast.
I'd love to have
I
him
swear on my
He
son's
doesn't
life,
like us.
we would love to have him on.
That's the thing. Like, all these guys would have Anthony on to talk about this. And he thinks he's too good for it.
What does he say? He hates us and all of our friends.
Like, listen, Anthony went on Marin and talked about how, like, the mothership stinks because everyone there is just making trans jokes. Have you watched the special?
No, not yet.
Would you care to guess what the opening joke is about?
Trans.
It's crazy. And it's a good joke. But it's like, I don't get Anthony's thing where he's like, I'm the only way you can do comedy. These guys aren't real comics. Meanwhile, they're the ones having fun with it and not taking themselves so seriously. So I think that might be the problem when you play a character of this arrogant guy. It's almost like we talked about with Dice, where, like, Dice to some extent became... Andrew Silverstein became Dice, you know?
Right.
Like, he kind of just is that guy now.
Yeah.
But Dice is a fun-loving, silly character. So for a comedian, that's not necessarily a bad thing. For Anthony, it is. If you're becoming this egotistical, kind of self-indulgent maniac, that's not a good thing for comedy necessarily. Now, again, I can't criticize it because his special was very good, as you heard there. So, still check out Bones and All. Just don't listen to Anthony on podcast because it'll bum you out.
We have one more clip.
Yeah, so they eventually get into the actual discussion. And this is Dave making a good point about cancel culture, where Anthony has always been safe because of reasons we've talked about in prior weeks, and even like what Dave was suggesting before, where it's like, we thought he loved his grandma, but it turns out he murdered her. You know, There is no grandmother. That he's not talking about a real person. You know, like I'm sure he's a grandmother, but that's not who he's talking about in that joke. So there are no stakes in Anthony's comedy, therefore he can't really get canceled. He does, I think Lewis might bring it up here, but he did have an issue on his show. It was either the shark joke or the Boston bomber controversy. I forget what exactly kind of got him into trouble.
Oh, it was the Boston bombing joke.
I thought it was. They bring up the shark incident. Like he made the shark party joke he made or something like that.
I could have sworn his show got canceled after the Boston bombing joke.
It's funny you say that. that gets brought up in this very clip. So Dave makes a good point here, and then Steve Renazizi chimes in.
Well, he shouldn't.
I'm saying with Anthony, when he goes, I hate these guys bitching about cancel culture, there is a little bit of a thing where it's like, look, dude, at every phase you were at, the offensive jokes, which he had some wildly offensive jokes. Of
course.
Your ones never really caught the eye of so it's easy when you get through to go, yeah, these other guys should have just gotten through. But I guarantee you, if one of fucking Jezelnik's jokes ever was they were like, hey, we should ruin this guy's life. Because he had a fucking joke about it.
Well, didn't he lost the show? Didn't he lose the show because of the Boston bombing joke?
No, I thought it was just ratings.
No, it was a shark joke he did.
I'm not. No. I don't mean. No, time out. I do not mean it.
But
like
you can tell Steve is friends with Anthony, and he's like, oh shit.
You can tell he's like, I can't offend anybody at all ever anymore.
He's like, remember, he's very good at joking about the 9/11 thing, by the way.
Yeah. Oh, is he?
Yeah, he's very good with it. I think even in this episode he makes a joke about it. But.
Okay, because I remember he stupidly went on that roast battle and thought no one was going to bring it up.
It was Sam.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's right.
Sam Morrill that beat him.
Little more.
Sorry, yeah. So the crowd really enjoys what Steve was saying here.
Dude, no. That was funny.
Read it.
I know. I'll take it.
Lead us to the promised land, our new leader.
The crowd was very funny in this. They knew exactly where to go. They knew to laugh at Anthony. They were a very good part of this.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's amazing. Just go back to our two segments. Go back to last week when we talked about Jezelnik and Mark Maron, and then come back to this segment and tell us which the comedians are. You know what I mean? Is it the Legion of Skanks guys and how they handle it? Or is it Mark Maron and Anthony Jeselnik bitching about how comedy will never recover from Joe Rogan interviewing Donald Trump? And what it shows you is comedians can be multiple things. They can have a serious conversation about cancel culture, whatever. Again, you want to say Rogan's a shitty comic? Go for it. He's a comic. He's been doing it for 30 years. Yes. You know, and he puts effort into it, whether you think he's terrible or great or somewhere in the middle. He does put effort into it. He's not a guy that just rides on his name and shows up at headlining weekends. He does put work into it. So you can say he's a terrible comic, but he is a comic, you know? Mm-hmm. And there's this idea that everyone respects Joe Rogan. Go look at Podcast Cringe. Look at his channel.
Oh, does he hate him in the 250 comedy assassins?
If you think every comedy fan loves Joe Rogan and admires his work, go to Podcast Cringe's channel and look at the amount of views those things get. That's the other thing is I get I've gotten comments on these Jezelnik videos, people that don't know the show that just find the video and are like, oh, this is hilarious on so many levels. They're like, this guy is dick riding Rogan so he can get on the show someday. Yeah, I think Rogan's gonna click on this video with 2,000 views and be like, you know what, this guy defended me. I'm gonna have him on.
You should come on.
Yeah, but also go look at the videos we've made about Rogan. How he doesn't get jokes like the shit he's done with Mark Normand and I forget who else he had on that we made fun of.
Anybody? Theo Vaughn. Theo Vaughn.
Like, it's crazy. We've pointed it out so many times, but you defend him once and people are like, well, I guess you love this guy.
Wow, you have a change of opinion sometimes, and it's not locked into one thing and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. And that's the shame of it, is that, like, Anthony Jeselnik's a guy that because Rogan had Trump on, he's not a comedian. And if he had Kamala on, it would have been no big deal. The evidence of that is that he talked with Mark Maron, who seriously interviewed Obama and used to do a serious political radio show, and he considers him a comic. So that, I think, puts to rest the Anthony Jeselnik coverage for a little while, I imagine.
It has to be.
Right?
Yeah. Yes, no other shows to go on.
Where else is he going to... Unless he does... God, he's going to do Rogan this week. We'll have to talk about him again. But
Go to blindmike.net for everything Blind Mike. Look at me. I did it. Kragers did it.